empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Happy birthday to Richard Young edition, the 5-star tailback who is a Buckeye lean, a heavy Buckeye lean. It's his birthday today. So happy birthday, Richard. We're actually going to do an episode discussing his rare talents. We're very excited about this kid. He could be in Ezekiel Elliott top 5 type of running back for this offense. Tony Alford feels very strongly he's going to land him. I'm sure he'll come up here in camp again, but this kid is an absolute freak show alien, and I'm excited as can be about this kid. And, you know, if we add him to our offense, he's another Travion. He's another superstar that as a freshman could start and carry the mail, be a 1,500-yard running back, and he's super physical, and we're going to break down some of his tape. So real quick, again, I really appreciate you guys. I love doing this show. You know, I love doing it with Nevadabuck. Thank you so much for all of the likes, all of the comments, the subscriptions, because it's working. You know, I've been asking you guys to help support us. You know, it takes 1 second to like it. It takes a second to leave a comment, a subscription. You know, for this video in particular, we're going to watch some film of Richard Young, and just in the comments, let me know who he reminds you of, you know, because as he remind you of Ezekiel, LaDainian Tomlinson, you know, he's 5'11", 200 pounds. He's really built like, you know, he's just freaky. You know, he's built like a kid who's much more advanced in age, just an absolute specimen. So let me know who you think he reminds you of when we watch this tape. I want you guys to be the scout and help us break this down, because it's always fun to hear, you know, who you think he looks like from an NFL perspective or an Ohio State perspective. So, you know, again, we appreciate you guys. Leave us a like. You know, the page is growing like crazy, and it's all thanks to you guys. So we appreciate you guys and gals, and, you know, just keep this thing going. We appreciate you. So with that, I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevada. Nevada, how are you today?
Doing good. Happy birthday to Richard Young. As you get older, you celebrate these things less, but when you're younger, they're kind of a big deal. So this is definitely a big day.
Yeah, it's like after 21, it all kind of stops being fun, because once you hit 21, it's kind of like you've ranked up to the highest level, and there's nothing else you really unlock after 21 other than being able to rent a car. So it's like there's nothing special after that. But this kid, you know, he doesn't look like the regular, you know, 17-year-old. He looks like an absolute freakazoid. And I'm going to get to kind of the offer sheet. You know, it's basically a race between us and Bama at this point. You know, our guys, you know, Bill Green, these guys all think that he's an Ohio State lean. I think, you know, the way Tony Alford's recruiting him, I think that Tony feels like he's got him. You know, I'd be stunned if he went to Bama, you know, but I mean, Bama is still Bama. They're difficult to beat, but this kid really loves Ohio State. And, you know, if you're a skill guy, I mean, is there any offense you want to play in other than Ryan Day's Nevada?
Well, certainly, you know, there's a lot to be said for that. And that's why Ohio State's feasted on 5-star quarterbacks and big time wide receivers. And, you know, the difficult thing about the running back position is only one guy can really play at a time. And, you know, you've got Trey Henderson there, but, you know, obviously by the time Richard Young hits campus, Trey Henderson will be on his way out, you know, close to being on his way out. And so, you know, I think it's one of those situations where you're only going to get one guy. You try to go all in on the best guy that you possibly can. And Ohio State's definitely all in on Richard Young and trying to, they think they got him, and hopefully they can close the deal, because he'd be the next great one for the Buckeyes. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the thought of having Richard Young be the freshman phenom and Trey Henderson be the NFL-bound junior for 1 year is pretty salivating, because you'd probably have, you know, you'd have 2 5-star tailbacks that are both explosive. They both can do it all. They have all the tools. You know, Trey obviously was fantastic this season. You were really preaching how good he was going to be during, you know, the fall camp. Like, this kid's different. He looks like Saquon Barkley. You know, he's got the breakaway ability, which, you know, he showed multiple times. He broke every freshman record, and you know, they're expecting even bigger things this year. But, you know, the thought of have we had 2 5-star tailbacks stacked up like that in a junior and freshman capacity before? Because I can't remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, obviously we've had a long line of great running backs at Ohio State, but you know, trying to think about when we've been able to lay that 5-star talent. That's always been the trick, is how do you do it? And Alabama's always found a way. You know, Alabama will have 2, 3, 4 5-star guys on the roster at the same time, and Ohio State's never really managed to turn that trick. So this would be a nice time for it to happen, and I think it's going to. So no time like the present to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, Bama's been disgusting with how they've been able to recruit running backs and convince them to all come, despite them all being 5 stars. You know, they get guys like Najee Harris to kind of wait their turn, and you know, they have guys like Alvin Kamara, who's one of the top 5 running backs in the NFL, just transfer out and go to Tennessee because he can't play. You know, a guy that's a Pro Bowler and a $20 million a year running back is he's asked to leave. So it's pretty incredible what they're going to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right into the film machine. We're going to watch this little Richard Young. Yeah, so this kid is obviously he's down in Lehigh Acres. I grew up in Naples, so it's very close. And you know, you see the elusiveness, you see the explosion, and nothing's more exciting than when a guy can just go to the crib like this. As an offensive lineman, you know, when you see a guy get in the open field and pull away from the safety, it's the greatest feeling in the world. 'Cause you know that you get to go sit on the bench after that play and chill. You know, you don't have to worry about the next, you know, 3 yards in cloud of dust because this guy's going to the crib. And you watch him; he's hard to bring down. Comparison wise, Nevada, you know, we asked the people, you know, who are loyal people that love watching this show to in their comments list, who does he remind you of? When you watch these first few clips, is there any running back that he reminds you of?
Well, I mean, again, from running styles, that you mentioned Zeke at the top of the show. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got some of Zeke in him in terms of the way that he runs, kind of upright, kind of gets to the line right there, and then drops the pads and kind of accelerates and goes away. But you know, he reminds me a little bit taller Warrick Dunn. I mean, just with that type of speed, that kind of burst, and that kind of that shiftiness that I loved out of Dunn and coming out of high school and obviously into college. So you know, he's got all the best attributes that you want in a running back. He can do it all. He's a great pass receiver as well as a return guy. So this is a guy that can literally do it all for you at the tailback spot, and that's really, you know, what you need to be an elite, you know, running back at the college level, and certainly at Ohio State. But you know, he's got all the tools.
Yeah, and it's amazing how he's able to keep all of his speed and momentum when he makes these little quick cuts. Because I mean, again, this is the rare thing that makes you a 5 star type talent is when you can get up in the hole here, you know, and he's great. He's got great patience. You know, he's following his blocker. He's got his pull guard right in front of him. He follows him, patient, and then you know, there's 2 guys right here. You know, I mean, there's not a lot of space here, and he wiggles right through here, keeps his acceleration. You know, and then, you know, this guy has, you know, I mean, he's got the angle on him right here, you know, and this is Florida football. So these guys are all pretty quick, and he gets past them on the angle, and it's, you know, it's curtains. Like those are the things that when you're really studying a tailback, you know, how often can he get away from people? Is he productive? You know, that's one of the big things that, you know, when I was in the staff room and we were evaluating Ezekiel Elliott versus Derek Green. Derek Green was the consensus #1 player at the position in the country. He was a 5 star. He wore number 27 because he loved Eddie George. His grandpa was the biggest Ohio State fan in the world. He went to Curtis Grant's high school. So we had a lot of reasons why, you know, he would prospectively be the guy. And I actually really liked the kid. He played on my speedball team when he was a sophomore, and he was, you know, a very athletic kid, but he wasn't a high motor kid, you know, if that makes sense. Like he looked like a freak, but he wasn't, you know, he didn't always go as hard as I thought he could have. And, you know, his biggest knock and something I learned from Urban Meyer is like, you know, you got to watch these guys when they play. Do they dominate? You know, because, you know, the Virginia league he plays in is bad football. It's not high level Texas, high level Georgia, high level Florida, California. It's bad ball. So, and he didn't dominate. He'd have games where he'd have 27 carries for 100 yards, which, you know, when you're playing bad ball, that's not the kind of average you're looking at. And then, you know, Ezekiel on the flip, you know, he played low level ball in Missouri, but he was absolutely a force of nature. He'd run for, you know, 200 yards every game on 20 carries and run away from guys. And you can't always penalize these guys for who they go against, but you know, you got to kind of track it, you know, and I mean, if you're taking a tailback at Ohio State, he better be dominant and he better have major stats. And you know, you can't just, you know, take a project at tailback, so to speak. You know, have you, and you were really high on Zeke when he came out in Nevada. I mean, you know, do you see domination out of this kid? Do you see that this kid could be the factor back that Ohio State needs to win a national title?
Yeah, no doubt. And when you do a little deeper dive on his, you know, get away from his highlight tape and get into the game tapes, you see him finishing runs. You see him getting those extra 2-3 yards after contact every time. You know, doing all the little things. He's an enthusiastic blocker as well. And he's just, you know, Zeke. For fun, we should go back and watch Zeke's high school tape because, as you said, it was low level ball. It was bad football, and he looked like the big kid playing against little kids. Well, this is the big kid playing against big kids, and he's running away from all of them. Richard Young, he's a special player, and like I said, I really hope Ohio State gets him. I think he would thrive in this Ohio State offense, doing the things that they're doing right now with Trey. And he'd be as good as Pryor is, and as good as Mayan Williams are. There's a reason why guys are 5 stars, and it's because they've got that extra little something, and this guy's got it for sure.
Yeah, and to me, like, if you really want to win a national championship, in my head, like when I look at the last 5-10 years, you need a 5-star running back. You need like the guys that Bam said, the Najee Harris's, Travis Etienne. You need those guys that are first round pick, factor back type guys. And the last 2 we won, we had Maurice Clarett and Ezekiel Elliott, arguably the 2 best tailbacks in school history outside of Archie Griffin. And you need that guy that can take it to the house. He's physical. He's a grinder. He's a guy that can get you the yardage when you need it. Because that's just the way the game is. I mean, even like LSU with their unbelievably prolific offense and throw game with Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a first-round pick at tailback. So you look at kind of the pattern and you try to mimic that as to where is college football now. There's a lot of, obviously it's a more higher scoring game. It's a lot more like, the NBA on grass in terms of, the points are up and there's less defense, and it's never been harder to play defense because the offensive skill guys are so well developed and the rules are so skewed towards the offense that, you need a guy that can really break away and make the plays you need. Because the thing about Ohio State is, obviously our receivers are fantastic. Right now, our running back room is as good as there is in America with Trey and Mayan. But you just got to keep that going because, the hard part about when you bring in a Trey Henderson is the kid the next year might not want to go behind that kid, because like, well, how many touches am I going to get when you guys have Trey Henderson and he's going to get, 250 touches, 300 touches. And then you got Mayan who's going to need 100 touches. Like, that's like the same as like with the quarterback room. It's like, you get a kid like Trey, scares a lot of kids off because all these kids want to play as freshmen. They all want to go to the league in 3 years. And I think it's, every other year is kind of the optimum situation where you can really go get the number 1 guy in the country. And I think Tony Alford is going to be able to pull that off with Richard Young. Do you, in the last 10 years, how have you seen college football change in terms of offense, defense, recruiting? Just give me kind of your overall view, because I just kind of went into my whole high level thing, but Nevada, what have you noticed over the last 10 years?
Well, what's interesting to me about, the game is really what they're recruiting more and more is athletes. You're looking for guys that are athletes almost regardless of position. And, the hybrid moves of guys on defense has really been the biggest change. And, I've always said you could probably play with 11 guys that were all 220 pounds, as opposed to 11 guys that were 300 pounds, as long as they could run. Mm-hmm. And looking for that on defense, that's been the biggest change on defense. On offense, it's just been the dominance of the quarterback position and how that position is just becoming, A+++ important. As these passing offenses and the rules are more lean towards passing attack. So I think that's really been the biggest change that I've noticed over the past 10 years. And obviously with recruiting, with NIL, and with all the other things that are going on, things are constantly changing. But one thing that never changes is you just never know with guys. With recruits. I remember a kid. Here's a little trivia question for you: who scored the winning touchdown in 2002? Who scored with the 2 last games of the regular season? Illinois and Michigan. Who scored the winning touchdown in both those games?
Was it Mo?
Do you remember?
Mo Hall.
Mo Hall. He was a guy that look at you coming out of high school, super highly recruited, but never could really get it done, even though he had those 2 great shining moments right there. But you just never know with kids. You never know who's going to have that extra motivation, who's going to have that, will be willing to put in that extra little bit of work. And that's why I always say I'm excited about every single one of the recruits, because I'm just not sophisticated enough to know who's going to be the great ones, because you just never know.
Yeah, and with Mo, he absolutely dominated the worst competition in Ohio in the Columbus City League, and he ran for 1 million yards, and he got to Ohio State and he was just soft. He couldn't run up in there, and that's something you really got to evaluate when you see these guys is like, can they run through tackles? do they have the mental toughness if they get stuck to keep going? And that's why like guys like Maurice Clarett and Ezekiel and Trey, guys that thrive on contact, are just different animals. And but no, this has been a great show. This is exciting. We again, I hope we get this kid, because the thought of having Trey Henderson as a junior and this kid as a freshman is just absolutely, it's just like a dream for us. And I think that whoever is taking over at quarterback, presuming CJ Stroud leaves, will have maybe the greatest 1-2 punch in Ohio State history as a safety net to hand the ball off to. So that'll be fantastic for Kyle McCord or whoever it ends up being. We've got options, and with Ryan Day and the way he works, like the portal is always open. So who knows who our quarterback is going to be after CJ leaves, but he might not be in the room, he might be in the room, but if you got these two guys at tailback, it's going to be fantastic. So with that, happy birthday, Richard Young. Go Bucks. We need you to come up here, close this thing out real quick. We again, we're growing like a weed. We're the #1 site covering Ohio State football recruiting. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate all your support. We think that this is going to be a monster get for Ohio State once we get Richard Young's commitment. And just keep supporting us. So if you guys want the inside scoop on what's going on in spring ball starts up next Monday. Join BuckeyeScoop.com. We appreciate you guys, and go Bucks.